Theme park rides are expensive. Immersing people in what is essentially a 360 movie while also ensuring that the experience is fun, efficient, and safe is not surprisingly very difficult. With the recent popularity in extremely immersive attractions and growing competition between Disney and Universal, the cost of building theme park attractions have started to skyrocket over the years. Previous record holders like the $100 million Expedition Everest failed to even come close to the least expensive attraction on this list. With that being said, let's take a look at the top most expensive theme park rides ever built. Coming in at number 11, the least expensive attraction on this list, believe it or not, is Rise of the Resistance. Built in 2019 with an estimated cost of $225 million, Rise of the Resistance is one of the most expensive trackless rides ever built. This is one of the many attractions on this list that we don't exactly know the true cost of. Disney as well as Universal don't typically release this type of information to the public. Because of this, most of the costs are usually estimates done by journalists or industry insiders, which may or may not be 100% correct. That being said, Rise of the Resistance is an impressive ride with many moving parts. Guests are transported from Batuu on a spacecraft into a massive hangar bay inside of a First Order Star Destroyer. They are then interrogated in a cell by Kylo Ren before making their grand escape with the help of the Resistance. The ride experience takes guests through multiple corridors underneath a 1-to-1 scale First Order walker and uses a new type of drop tower Star Tour style finale, which ends off with the guests escaping the Star Destroyer and crashing back into Batuu. Although the attraction has had multiple technical issues, it's an experience well worth the cost to build. The 10th most expensive theme park ride to ever be built is Radiator Springs Racers at Disney's California Adventure. Built in 2012, the attraction took up 18% of the $1.1 billion expansion Disney California Adventure received in 2007 and is said to have cost between $200 to $225 million to build. Adjusted for inflation, Radiator Springs Racers would have costed the company between $258 to $290 million to build today. Keep in mind, however, that a large portion of the cost would have gone into constructing the mountain range, which serves as the backdrop to Cars Land. As for the attraction itself, guests board modified test track vehicles before venturing deep into the mountain range, where animatronics built by Garner Holt Productions bring the world of Cars to life. Then, with the help of either Luigi or Ramon, guests race head-to-head down the track at speeds up to 40 miles an hour to the finish line. The 9th most expensive theme park attraction to ever be built is Pooh's Honey Hunt, which in the year 2000 costed the Disney company $165 million to build. Adjusted for inflation, Pooh's Honey Hunt would have costed the company over $280 million today to construct. The cost of the attraction might surprise a few people. What looks to be like a simple kiddie ride is somehow more expensive than both the largest mountain range to ever be built as well as Rise of the Flipping Resistance. However, the cost of the attraction isn't so much due to the complexity, but rather the time it was built. Before the year 2000, the only form of trackless technology was found in attractions like Ellen's Energy Adventure and the original Tower of Terror, where the wires embedded into the ground would direct where the vehicles could go. In this case, the vehicles would slow and would oftentimes fail if they moved too far away from the wire. On the other hand, Pooh's Honey Hunt was built using an entirely new system altogether designed by Disney Imagineering. Instead of relying on wires built into the ground, it uses a variety of off and onboard sensors to determine the position and direction the vehicles needed to go. Pooh's Honey Hunt was the first modern-day trackless attraction Disney ever designed and built, and it currently is the foundation for every trackless system Disney has built since. The next most expensive theme park ride ever built is Disney's Hollywood Studios' Tower of Terror. Originally built in 1994 with a cost of $140 million, the attraction today would have costed nearly $281 million to build. The original Tower of Terror is much more complicated than the current iterations of the ride we see today. At the loading station, each of the 4 ride vehicles would have their own elevator and show scene. However, after reaching the next floor, the vehicles would then travel out of their elevators through a themed corridor and into one of 2 drop shaft elevators using the trackless vehicle technology previously mentioned. The attraction uses real elevator motors that have been heavily modified to not only lift the elevators at high speeds, but also to yank the elevators down the shaft as well. The ride system, while impressive, was both extremely inefficient and prone to breakdowns. Not only that, when one of the elevators had to go down for maintenance, the hourly capacity of the attraction would have been reduced to 50% due to the ride only having 2 drop shaft elevators available. To this day, Disney's Hollywood Studios' Tower of Terror remains to be the most advanced as well as tallest Tower of Terror attraction Disney has ever built. The 7th most expensive ride ever built is Ratatouille the Adventure at Walt Disney Studios Park in France and Remy's Ratatouille Adventure in Epcot. When the attraction was originally opened at Walt Disney Studios in 2014, it cost an estimated $270 million to complete. Adjusted for inflation, the attraction would have costed $338 million to build today. Now, there are many conflicting reports on how much the attraction really costs. Some say the attraction was only half the cost, while others say it hovered closer to $250 million to construct. For the sake of simplicity, we're just going to assume that the original estimate of $270 million is correct. Ratatouille is Disney's first trackless attraction to feature 3D screens and heat from when the vehicles travel underneath the stove. Using electronic actuators, the vehicles can also slightly tilt in certain directions to help simulate movements in conjunction with what the guests are seeing on screen. In 2021, the Ratatouille attraction was cloned to Epcot, where a new plaza and restaurant were added along with the attraction. Due to a slightly different layout from the France version, the original Remy restaurant at the end of the attraction was removed, while a new section of queue themed to an artist's workshop was added. The next most expensive attraction ever built in a theme park is Tower of Terror at Walt Disney Studios in France. Built in 2007 with an estimated cost of $240 million, the attraction would have cost Disney $343 million to build today. For those of you with keen eyes, you might have noticed that the more simpler version of Tower of Terror, built in Walt Disney Studios, is somehow more expensive than the original Tower of Terror in Florida. The reasoning behind this is simple yet complicated. The original plan was to have a more efficient version of Tower of Terror built for Walt Disney Studios due to the park's lack of opening day attractions. However, due to budgetary restraints, the plans were given to California Adventure while the Paris version was put on hold till 2005. Then, after construction started, Disney quickly realized that the ride needed to be completely redesigned. Due to French building regulations, the attraction was required to be built from the ground up using a steel frame rather than concrete. The redesign, combined with the extra cost in materials, resulted in the attraction costing substantially more than the original Tower of Terror in Disney's Hollywood Studios. To this day, Tower of Terror at Walt Disney Studios Park in France remains to be the most expensive Tower of Terror attraction Disney has ever built. The 5th most expensive theme park ride ever built is Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure at Islands of Adventure. Opening in 2019 at an estimated cost of $300 million, Hagrid's held the title for the most expensive roller coaster ever built for nearly 3 years. The attraction follows Hagrid as he tries to guide guests on how to correctly fly a magical motorbike before sending them on a crazy adventure through the world of Harry Potter. Replacing its previous tenant, Dragon Challenge, Hagrid's reuses many of the same queue elements and also has many references to Universal Creative's past projects. As for the attraction itself, Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure was manufactured by the Swiss company Intamin and features a world record of 7 separate launches, multiple large and small animatronics, a rollback section, and a 17 feet vertical drop track. It is by far the most complicated and technically impressive roller coaster ever created by Universal Studios. The next most expensive theme park ride ever built is Pirates of the Caribbean: Battle for Sunken Treasure at Shanghai Disneyland. The attraction originally cost $400 million to construct back in 2016, which, adjusted for inflation, would cost nearly $500 million today. Battle for Sunken Treasure, unlike its predecessors, uses a completely different ride system, which is sort of comparable to the Doom buggies found in the Haunted Mansion. Instead of floating on water and being propelled by water jets, the vehicles are attached to the track in two different areas, allowing them to pivot in a certain direction. Similar to the Haunted Mansion, the vehicles can turn a certain direction and direct the guest's attention to a certain area. Although the new system removed the feeling of floating on water, it added a whole new way of telling a story that was not previously possible on the other Pirates of the Caribbean attractions. The attraction features multiple animatronics, large physical sets, massive projection screens made in collaboration with Industrial Light and Magic, and takes place in a humongous 175,000 square foot building. Battle for Sunken Treasure delivers on an experience not yet seen on any other Pirates of the Caribbean attraction around the world, and was also awarded the Outstanding Visual Effects in a Special Venue Project award by the Visual Effects Society. The third most expensive ride ever built is the Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind roller coaster at Epcot. Built in 2022, the attraction's cost is estimated to be at a massive $500 million to construct. Cosmic Rewind is currently the most expensive roller coaster to have ever been built in the world, nearly doubling the previous title holder, Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, which again was estimated to be around $300 million. I'm pretty sure no one is going to try to steal that title away from Cosmic Rewind anytime soon. Replacing the previous tenant, Ellen's Energy Adventure, the attraction was manufactured by the Dutch company Vekoma and features vehicles that are able to rotate on their axis. Cosmic Rewind is Disney's first roller coaster with a backwards launch, has a top speed of 60 miles per hour, and is one of the longest roller coasters in Florida. Using a combination of screens, practical sets, and projections, the attraction is often referred to as a spiritual successor of Space Mountain. The second most expensive theme park ride ever made was Test Track at Epcot. Originally slated to open in May of 1997, the attraction was delayed multiple times due to technical issues until March 17, 1999, nearly 2 years later. Due to delays, the attraction's cost grew to an estimated $300 million, which, when adjusted for inflation, would be $534 million, over $500 million to design and build today. Test Track at the time was an incredibly complicated ride. Not only did the original tires constantly wear away due to the extreme nature of the ride, it also suffered from multiple software issues. The system at the time could only handle up to 6 cars on the track and needed to be completely rewritten in order to accommodate the necessary 29 cars for the maximum hourly capacity. The original attraction used to take place in a General Motors testing facility, where guests aboard test cars would go through multiple experiences typically done to real-life prototype vehicles. In 2012, the original experience was revamped with a futuristic environment. Along with the previous ride experience, guests had the opportunity to create their own cars and compare them against other cars designed by other guests. Before I move on to the most expensive attraction ever built at a theme park, I just wanted to go over a few honorable mentions first. These are attractions that would have made the list, but unfortunately could not due to the fact that there is currently no estimate for their build cost. Tron Light Cycle Run at both Shanghai Disneyland and Magic Kingdom in Florida were very expensive attractions to build. The attraction had guests mount a light cycle and compete against other riders in a challenge to see who could ride through the most gates. Insiders report that Disney World management was very unhappy with Tron due to the fact that the cost was skyrocketing past initial expectations. Journey to the Center of the Earth at Tokyo Disney Sea is an attraction that takes guests through the lava tubes of a volcano and deep into the earth. Using modified test track technology, the attraction features multiple animatronics, flamethrowers, and travels at nearly 50 miles an hour. The attraction features an area where guests plunge down from the top of the volcano before traversing around the entire land at high speeds. Smuggler's Run at both Disneyland in California and Disney's Hollywood Studios in Florida is a theme park attraction where guests get to pilot the Millennium Falcon and assist the Resistance. Using 8 NVIDIA Quadro P6000 GPUs, 5 Quadro Sync projectors, and Unreal Engine, the attraction renders environments in real time in which guests can change the outcome of. Some Disney fans speculate that the attraction cost nearly $1 billion alone to design and construct, which in all actuality doesn't really make sense since the entirety of Galaxy's Edge is $1 billion. Last but definitely not least, the most expensive theme park attraction to have ever been built in the world is Spaceship Earth at Epcot. The attraction cost an estimated lowball amount of $800 million to design and build in 1982, which, when adjusted for inflation, would be a eye-watering $2.5 billion today. To give you some context, that is nearly half the cost of Disney's new flagship park, Shanghai Disneyland, which, by the way, has multiple rides, shows, and the biggest Disney castle Disney has ever built, and is more expensive than India's entire space program budget from 2022. You can literally get to space with the price of one Spaceship Earth. The sphere in which Spaceship Earth is housed in took nearly 26 months to build and is still considered to be an engineering marvel. It is currently the largest freestanding sphere in the world, one of the tallest dark rides in the world, the first attraction to ever use the smellitizer, and had assistance from MIT when determining if the bottom of the sphere would create a wind tunnel in an event of a hurricane. The attraction takes guests through the human history of communication and innovation, starting from the early days of cavemen and ending in space, where guests are able to create their own stories. Spaceship Earth takes guests on a 15-minute journey from ground level all the way up to the top of the sphere into, not surprisingly, one of the largest planetariums in the world. Spaceship Earth also uses a unique drainage system where water collected through the openings in the sphere is drained out into the World Showcase Lagoon. What are your thoughts on the most expensive rides ever built? Let me know in the comment section down below or by liking the video and hitting that subscribe button.